Welcome to Thrust, the Dance Made in Canada podcast. This season, we are investigating the call and response that dance has within our society. We will talk about emergent and urgent themes guiding innovation in our field. These episodes will look at new technologies, academia, cognitive research, and intimacy within dance. Let's tune in to what's happening now. Today, we welcome Dr. Laurel Trainor. Laurel is a cognitive psychologist whose work brings music and science together in the study of perception, cognition, and the neuroscience of music. Laurel is the founding and current director of Live Lab at McMaster University, formerly trained as a musician and still active as principal flutist of Burlington Symphony Orchestra. Her work at Live Lab promises valuable information on how performers and audiences interact, highlighting the benefits the arts have on health and well-being. Hi, Laurel.
Hi.
Welcome to Season 6 of Thrust.
Well, thank you. My pleasure to be here.
For our listeners who maybe have never heard of the Live Lab before, what is it? And for me, my interest is, what does it measure?
Yeah, so the Live Lab is a functioning concert hall that we built from the ground up. But it's also
so impressive.
But it's also a research facility. So it's a 106-seat concert hall where we have also had dance performances. Yeah. But the really interesting thing is we have all kinds of equipment there to measure people's behaviors and responses. So we can motion capture and measure the movements of the whole audience at once, musicians or dancers on the stage. We can measure brain waves, so we can look at how the brain is reacting during live, real performances. We can measure other physiology like heart rate, breathing responses. We can measure in the whole audience at once where everyone is looking, so we can track their gaze over time. And sort of one of the really unique things is we can measure these things in up to 100 people at a time. So we can look not only at individual responses, but how people are influenced by those on the stage, by those around them, how they synchronize with others, and how their behaviors change as a group.
And can you do those two things at the same time? Can you be measuring what's happening on stage and what's happening in the audience simultaneously?
Absolutely, yeah.
Wow. Such valuable information for artists to understand the ways that their work is sort of permeating into an audience. Because we are sort of centered around dance for the podcast, I'm curious what kind of collaborations have happened with dancers at the Live Lab over the years.
Yeah, we've had a number of collaborations. So most recently with Santi Smith.
Yeah.
And her dance company, and it was one of the top, if not the top, Indigenous dance companies in Canada.
Gahawi Dance is an incredible organization.
Yeah, so they've come in and obviously danced in our space, but we've put motion capture markers on the dancers so that we can track the intimate movements that they make while they're dancing. Wow. So how we can look at how well are they coordinating. And then we've done, studies to look at, is synchrony between dancers something that people use to evaluate a dance performance. And the other cool thing that we did with Santi is recently she designed an incredible outdoor performance, show with projections onto the Woodland Center, which has been transformed into an Indigenous center now, as opposed to what its original function was as a residential school. Yeah. And so as part of that celebration, they took some of the motion capture that we had done in the Live Lab. For motion capture, we put markers on different points on the body, so we can then sort of take out the video of the body and look only at the movement of the markers. Wow. So she took some of those renditions that we had of her dancers, and that was projected, some of what was projected. So beautiful. In the Live Lab, we're very interested in things like, how do dancers synchronize? How does that affect audiences' perception and enjoyment of shows? But we also use the technology in the Live Lab a lot to enhance creativity for artists.
I was curious about like synchronicity. Have you found that audiences are drawn to more like specific things than other things with that research that you've done? Like what what do audiences want or what do they look for?
Yeah, well, maybe I can just give you one example. So we did a study with hip hop
Yes.
dancers, and it was actually a real competition, hip hop competition. So
Okay.
we put a few constraints on it. So they had to be in groups of 5, and they had to
Yeah.
have moments where all the dancers were doing the same thing in
Right.
synchrony. And then we had professional judges and audiences paid to come and see it.
Yeah.
And what we found was that for both audience ratings and the judges, synchrony, how well they were coordinated and synchronized, was an important factor in the judging. At the same time, it wasn't the only factor.
Yeah.
And there were some differences between the judges and the audience.
Yeah.
So the judges cared more about artistic aspects, what they found very expressive, and the audience cared more about synchrony. So, there are some subtle differences, but generally a lot of agreement between how the audiences reacted.
Yeah.
And of course, hip hop is wonderful because the audiences really get into it.
Yes.
And so we're actually now looking at how much noise the audience makes to judge what parts that they really... so if someone does an incredible backflip, the audience will go, yay! And so we can actually use those verbal responses of the audience to understand what moments are really affecting them.
There's so much nuance, especially across like movement disciplines. Like I'm thinking about even the cultural differences between hip hop, an audience taking that in versus maybe like Santi's contemporary Indigenous choreography. And it would be so exciting to see a study that looked at like what are audiences drawn to across artistic disciplines.
We find even with sort of Western classical music, where audiences are sort of told not to move very much. In fact, they do move. So we've motion captured the head movements of entire audiences, and we find things like they're more coordinated if they're fans of the group that they're listening to. They're more coordinated, leads to feelings of being connected with the others in the audience. So even when people may not be making huge movements or a lot of vocalization, they are giving cues to those around them about how they're feeling. And it's, in all the cases, it seems to lead to more of a sense of community and shared purpose and bonding among the audience members.
It's interesting. Like I instantly think about the sort of, for lack of a better term, like the spiritual experiences that we have in large groups when we're listening to music or we're all doing something together, and to be able to quantify that, I think is so interesting. It's something that is so much embedded in our like history and our culture as humans, as a society, but to have the tools to actually be able to say, this is why.
Well, we have, so we can quantify it to some degree. So we can, for instance, set up a situation where we have people either moving in sync to music or through, headphones and various means, we can have them not moving in sync. And afterwards, we can give them a task to do together, where they can cooperate, or a game where they can cooperate or choose to compete. They cooperate more after just a few minutes of moving in sync with the others in their group. And we've even shown this now in infants. So as young as 18 months. They can't move very well in sync to music yet because they don't have the motor coordination, but they're held and bounced since they were born. And even before they're born, when the mother moves, they got those sensations. So if we bounce them in sync with another experimenter, or we bounce them out of sync with another experimenter while they're listening to music, afterwards, the infants that were bounced in sync are more likely to help the experimenter if she pretend accidentally drops something she needs to put clothes on a line or something. They're more likely to pick it up and help her. just after about 3 minutes of bouncing in sync with her compared to if they were bounced out of sync.
Wow.
So these effects are very powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know for you, like that research of like infants in music is so much a part of your like upbringing into the Live Lab and the foundation of your research. What or how has that changed your interpretation of like witnessing those relationships of movement and music in the upbringing of our young ones?
Yeah, well, I think what's become very clear is that there are now studies showing every society that we've looked at, which is now close to 100,
Wow.
there's special music for infants. There's not only is music cross-culturally universal, but special singing to infants appears to be as well. So everywhere, people just kind of intuitively figure out that they sing a lullaby style, that it will help the infant calm down and sleep. So I've spent years studying the nature of that, including now looking at the dynamics of the interaction between the mother and the infant. Mm-hmm. So mothers sing to infants a lot, and we can now see where does the infant look when the mother is singing, and on the strong beats of her song, they tend to look at her eyes, which gives emotional information. Wow. In adult conversation, you're probably not aware of it, but in both speech and music, we tend to blink at phrase boundaries.
Oh, interesting.
So, yeah, when you blink, it actually sort of resets some phase things that are going on in your neural oscillations. So we're not aware of it, but it is a cue, a subconscious cue to others that this is the end of a phrase. Maybe you can start speaking now and get into the conversation and so on. Yeah. What we find when mothers talk to babies is when they get to the end of a phrase, they do the opposite. They open their eyes wide, they look at the baby, waiting for some kind of response. And so that's the point at which they really want to monitor what the baby is going to respond. But in adults, we don't have to do that anymore. Yeah. So the dynamics of the interactions with infants are different than with adults. And these infant interactions are really important for infants' learning and social bonding and coming to understand the world.
The Toronto International Tap Dance Festival returns August 21st to 23rd for 3 days celebrating tap dance as world-class music, movement, and culture. Produced by Toffin Rhythm Projects, this year's festival welcomes internationally acclaimed artists including Chicago's Brill Barrett, Boston's Subject Matter, and Boys Club Tap Dance Collective, a tri-city collective of artists from Calgary, Toronto, and New York City. The festival also pays tribute to Canadian tap legend Joey Hollingsworth as he approaches his 90th birthday and acts as a homecoming for Heather Cornell. After 40-plus years abroad building her legacy as one of tap's most influential voices. TO Tap Fest is uniquely committed to commissioning and presenting full-length professional tap dance works that become tourable repertory. Beyond performances, enjoy masterclasses, workshops, free panel discussions, and a pay-what-you-can community jam open to all, hosted by local favorite Victoria Miller. Learn more and get your tickets at toffinrhythmprojects.com and follow at Toffin Rhythm Projects and at TO Tapfest. I would love to hear you talk about embodied cognition, because when you talked about it in our initial conversation, I was fascinated, and it expanded my knowledge around what embodied cognition is.
Well, the idea of embodied cognition is just that everything that we think, our cognition, is actually rooted in the body. So you can sort of see it in children. So when we teach them to count, we use our fingers. When we teach them music, we have them move. It's the first thing we do. We don't say, sit still, and I'm going to teach you this song. So, and right now I'm moving my hands.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you said to me, okay, sit on your hands, don't move your hands, it would actually be harder for me to express myself in words, because we use our hands, the gestures that we make when we're talking. Like, we shouldn't have to make them to talk, but they help us organize phrases and they help us plan what we're going to do next. So if we look in the brain, and specifically I've studied music in this respect, when you just listen, and if you just listen to a rhythm and you don't move, obviously it activates auditory cortex, to be expected, but it also activates part of the motor system, in particular the premotor parts that have to do with planning how you're going to move next.
Interesting.
So when you listen to a rhythm, that activates those areas, and then there's feedback. So now we think that the way rhythm is processed, because it occurs over time. Right. So each individual note doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
So what it means is the pattern over time. That's where the meaning is. So the auditory system uses the motor system. The motor system gives feedback to the auditory. So it's this loop that enables us to create and perceive these patterns. So if then you think about musicians, yes, so if you're playing violin, you have to move your fingers and your arm to do the bowing. But musicians always, even if it's subtle, they always sway their body.
Yeah.
And so we were curious about that, because they're usually not aware of what they're doing. So we thought, well, maybe it actually also has to do with this motor planning. It's helping them to play.
Yeah.
And so we've taken, for example, string quartets and measured the body sway of all the members of the string quartet.
Because they don't have a conductor.
They don't have a conductor, so they have to coordinate, just as dancers often have to coordinate, well, without, of course, dancers, you have the music, perhaps, that's going to help you.
Yeah, breath, music.
Breath, yeah. In the case of musicians, they're creating the music, so they have to coordinate that. And so what we found, we can use mathematical techniques like Granger causality to look at how the movements of one musician are affecting the movements of another.
Yeah.
And so we found that in the pieces that are rated as best performances by other people, there's more of this communication through body sway among the musicians. And interestingly, even if we made it so the musicians couldn't see each other, they still swayed their body.
Whoa.
And there was still communication from the body sway of one to the body sway of the other, even though there was no visual conduit through which that was happening. So it was happening through the sound, which we've now confirmed. But what it suggests is the body sway is helping them plan the next motor movements, plan how they're going to play, how am I going to phrase this, am I going to increase the intensity, am I going to use short staccato notes or long legato notes. So all of that is expressed in the movements that they exhibit.
It's interesting to think about like how arts can be a model for these very like human, tangible modes of connecting. And I'm curious where that's filtered out into like the broader spectrum of health in your research and understanding of our world in that way.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think we're really just scratching the surface so far of why we have music and how we can harness music for health. So I've already talked a little bit about the baby studies, and so we now know that singing to babies is a really important aspect of health and development. So people tend to focus on cognitive development, but in fact, I think its major purpose is emotional bonding with the mother. So the mothers are moving the infants as they sing to them. And in some recent work, we've shown that when mothers want to soothe the baby, they sing a lullaby, and their major mode of movement is back and forth sway. If they're engaging an infant who's alert, they bounce up and down. And it's like every mother does this. So like nobody's even thought about this before because it's sort of below our level of consciousness. But that's telling the baby how to develop. But also, why do people go to concerts?
Yeah.
So as I've mentioned, you feel bonded with your favorite artist, but you also feel bonded with the other people. And that's so important for building community. So if you think about, if you want to build a community, what do? Well, you have music in the street and you have everybody out dancing, right? That's one of the best ways to sort of build a sense of community. So perhaps more direct measures. We've looked at using music therapy as well. So university students these days are highly stressed. There's changes going on in society, at universities and education that are, kind of daunting. Yeah. So we set up a study where we gave 6 weeks of group music therapy, so groups of about 10 people. So they came once a week for 6 weeks. And just made music together. You didn't have to be a musician. The most interesting thing is that you didn't have to have a diagnosis. All you needed to do was say, okay, I'm interested in reducing my stress and anxiety levels. I'll try this. Yeah. And so compared to a group that was waitlisted, that didn't get it, we found like cortisol, which is a stress hormone we can measure from hair, was reduced compared to the control group. Their ratings of how well they were feeling were all reduced. So I don't know. We're now investigating. Is it the group aspect of it? Is it the music aspect? Is it the movement? It's probably all of those things. Yeah. But again, it just shows how we can harness music in sort of relatively inexpensive ways. And proactive ways, like before a crisis situation is reached. Yeah. To, just like you go to the gym for physical health, maybe you should do group music activities for mental health.
Thanks for tuning in to Thrust, the Dance Made in Canada podcast. Thrust is presented by Dance Made in Canada Fête au Canada Festival, a biennial dance festival featuring dance artists from across Turtle Island with unique artistic visions from diverse backgrounds. We acknowledge that this land, colonially known as Canada, has been the site of dance for many millennia. We are grateful for the ability to dance and celebrate on Turtle Island. Thrust is produced by Mayumi Lashbrook with Taylor Zalek Young, audio engineer and composer Jamar Powell, video editor Drew Berry, sound engineer Chris Dupuis at 1990 Studios, and cover photography by Marlo Porter. And I'm your host, Aria Evans. Thank you to our funders, Canadian Heritage, the Canada Council for the Arts, Ontario Arts Council, and Toronto Arts Council. And a shout out to our sponsor, Delta Bingo, and our individual donors. We couldn't do this without their constant support. Find us wherever you get your podcasts, and don't forget to rate and review.